Nobody starts at the finish line. You have to start somewhere. In order for you to get to where you're going, to meet that destination, you can't think that you're going to get there instantly. Welcome to another episode of the Nothing to Something podcast. As I always do, I give my personal opinions and my personal views on different topics on how you could go from nothing to something. And right now, we're still touching on mental health. I'm not a professional, but today we do have a guest, licensed professional counselor, Miss Katrina Pinckney. Just like thank you for joining us, and I want to get right on started and just tell us about yourself.
Okay, so I am a licensed professional counselor here in Pennsylvania. I have been practicing in my private practice for about 5 years now. I started the private practice based on the mental health needs of underserved populations. So my background is in higher education, a variety of backgrounds. So higher education, healthcare settings, public health, and community mental health. So when I worked in higher education, I saw that certain student populations were not receiving the supportive services they needed in regards to mental and behavioral health. And that impacted if they completed degrees, or in my case, for my program, it was certifications. So, for me, it was like a no-brainer. I needed to do something to help that population. And mostly those in that population were people of color, so Black and brown people. And to me, if you don't have access to quality mental health care, that definitely impacts if you can actually move upward in regards to societal success and financial stability and a lot of other things, being able to take care of your families and et cetera. So for me, it was a no-brainer to go back to school and pursue my licensure to offer quality mental and behavioral health services to these populations. And again, my target populations are Black and brown communities, people of color, indigenous populations, again, just communities of color.
Okay. So you actually touched on one of my questions that I was going to ask you, as in how the financial state of people could affect their view or the stigma of therapy. So I just want to ask that, since you kind of touched on that, how do you think that creates a stigma for people to kind of shy away from therapy and mental health?
I think that, so again, I'm a very candid person. I'm very authentic, and I think those qualities are very beneficial to my clientele. Here I'm gonna be authentic and very candid too. I do think the profession at times can be more targeted in regards to money, and seeing that business point of view of the profession. Again, my purpose for getting into this field was to serve communities of color, Black and brown folks and indigenous populations. Other people's purposes for being in this field, I can't speak on that, but to me, if you are charging fees and prices that a lot of folks can't afford, I mean, you're not giving them access to the services. They don't have accessibility to the services. For me, again, I work with my clients, so I depend on where they are. A lot of my clients are, let's say, students. They might be as young as in their 20s, just getting out of school or transitioning to first jobs and things like that. They can't afford $190 sessions. That just is not accessible to them. They don't have the financial resources to do that. So I work with sliding scales. I offer different deals. I'm trying to make the services accessible to them. I don't know, actually, and again, with licensed counselors, I'm not talking about other professionals that work in this field like social workers and stuff like that. But in regards to licensed professional counselors, I know that the prices are really high. And especially with psychiatrists, I know that the prices even get more steeper in regards to like 300 sometimes an hour. And it's not even an hour, it's more like 20 minutes with the psych. So again, to me, my goal is making the services accessible to people who need the services. I don't know if that's the purpose for everyone else. I hope that answers the question.
Right. And I know that you touched on this already, saying, when you seen that there was a need. So there were a group of people, younger people, that was at a nothing place and needed to be at a something place where they needed to get help. So just why do you think that is important? Not just for younger people, but just in people as a whole. Why is it important for them to understand mental awareness?
Well, I think just in regards to people as a whole, again, I believe in a holistic point of view. So everyone has different areas of their life that equates to that whole person. So we're focusing on now, right now, we're talking about the mental, emotional health. But then you also have your social life, your financial stability, your family relationships, work relationships, work in general, school if you're attending school. Some people are really into spirituality, religion, environmental folks. Creativity. I mean, you could touch on so many aspects of a person that equals that whole person. So to me, it's very important because if those areas are thrown off or not in balance, it creates this imbalance amongst the whole person. So all these pieces have to be in balance with one another for you to be function the way you should be or the way you would like to be, for you to be stable, successful, moving in terms of upward mobility within society. I mean, all the pieces have to be aligned. That's how I look at it.
Okay. And it's funny that you saying the things that you're saying because it's a lot of stuff that I wanted to touch on and you already actually touched on it. Oh, just on self-image alone. I know from my own personal experience, years ago, I always portrayed myself to be very confident and to have a certain disposition about myself. But to anyone that didn't know me, I wasn't confident with myself. I didn't have a lot of self-esteem, and it was something totally different for me. So just even touching on that, how does self-image play a part with people not being aware of their own mental state?
I think it's always, so I'm gonna touch on a little bit in regards to person-centered counseling and Carl Rogers. So with that, his theory touches on a person having a perceived self and their actual self. So when I hear you talk about how people saw you as this confident person, but internally you really weren't, I'm thinking the perceived self is how people perceive you or see you on the outside. And then more of your actual self is that person that in the inside, but you want it to be the actual self, you actually want to be the self-image that's portrayed. So again, it goes back into, in regards to mental and emotional health, sometimes it is this disconnect between how you're being perceived and your actual self. And that goes into, like you mentioned, the self-esteem, self-confidence, but it also could touch on self-worth in terms of how people are viewing you, but also how you are perceived within society. And I think that's a big issue coming up as of now. But for Black and Brown folks, this is something we've been aware of for all our lives. But our value and worth within society, the world, our families, friendships, etc., that really impacts our actual self, meaning our authentic self, and if we can really be authentic in certain environments or different environments. So again, that is a mental health, but to me, it's more like a chronic mental health and emotional health issue, especially amongst Black and Brown folks.
Okay. So let me ask you this question.
Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes complete sense. How if you're not emotionally in tune, then how can you be mentally in tune? Because the two have a connection with each other. Mm-hmm. So that makes complete sense. Now, I know for myself, when I was on the journey of going from a nothing place and not knowing where I was and not knowing why I reacted the way I reacted, to having that knowledge and knowing things about myself, I seen that I had to find out my why. So, does knowing why play a big part?
Um, Let me ask you this. Are you saying knowing why does that play a part in moving towards your mental and emotional stability, or are
Yes.
you saying just in general? Okay. I think it depends on the person. I don't actually think sometimes the why, knowing the why is helpful, depending on the situations. But at times it is very helpful when you're talking about patterns of behavior that you might be displaying, not you, but a person might be displaying in the here and now, in the present, that is based on the past. So like childhood upbringing, family influences, let's say even religious upbringing, different things could really influence how we behave now from the past. So that might be a why that we need to understand and know, so we could figure out if we actually want to move away from that, continue with that pattern, break that pattern, however we want to address it. It might be helpful, but there's also some things that's in the why that might not be that helpful. And I always say to folks, let's say I have clients who have extensive trauma histories. I don't know sometimes if it's helpful to dig into their past trauma, because those are really painful events. They're events that sometimes people have buried for reasons that it moves beyond just like defense mechanisms. But again, it could really, I think, far stop that success that they have been moving towards as of in the here and now. So if you're really, sometimes I have clients who really would like to open back up that trauma, and I'm asking them, how will this benefit you in the here and now and moving forward? So it
Wow.
really depends. It depends on what it is, but it also depends on the client too and how it's going to benefit them in the long run. So I'm always there to offer the different perspectives of looking at it, even if they present like, hey, I really want to dig into this. It's like, okay, what do you expect the outcomes to be? What do you want those outcomes to be? And are those outcomes realistic in regards to now and moving forward? Because the
Okay.
past is always in the past.
Okay, and I like how you just said, you present different perspectives to people, because I know I was one of those people who, for a long time, was like, oh well, I don't need to see no therapist, don't nobody need to know my business and things like that, because I don't want them to tell me what I should do. And from what you're saying, you present people with a perspective. You're not actually telling people what to do or what not to do.
No, that's
So that
definitely what we should not be doing. We should not be telling you what to do or what.
okay.
Yeah.
So and that kind of rolls into my next question, because if you're not telling people what actually to do and you're presenting them with a different perspective, then there wouldn't be a conflict with their belief system.
It's true.
Because I was always under the impression, because again, I'm giving my own personal views. I was always under the impression that, it can conflict with a personal belief, because if they're telling me to do this, but I believe this, then how is that going to work? So, what you're saying is that really removes the stigma of, oh, therapists tell you what to do.
They're not supposed to. See, this is my thing. If you're going to a therapist, and again, I'm very candid and frank, if you're going to a therapist and they're telling you what to do, that's not the therapist you should be going to. They're not supposed to be telling you directives of what to do. It's really up to you. And I say to all my clients, it's your choice in regards to if you want to end this relationship, how you want these sessions or relationship to go in terms of the meaning to you. I'm not setting goals and then telling you what the goals are. You're setting the goals and we're talking about them together. So it's more of a collaboration. So if you're finding someone that is telling you what to do, it's not going to help you in the long run. See, my purpose, again, the whole point of counseling to me is to help people be more self-sufficient, to help people be able to make more, let's say, better decisions in regards to their lives, and to help people to, again, my personal purpose, upward mobility,
Okay.
success. So I want to see folks climb up the ladder. Counseling is not supposed to be forever. It's a temporary thing. So you learn what you learn in these counseling sessions, put in these tools in your tool belt or strategies or whatnot. You practice them for a while with that counselor, and then you're able to go out on your own and be able to use them when you need to use these tools or strategies to help you with coping with daily life or managing and things like that. So yeah, if someone's telling you what to do, that's not what they're supposed to be doing.
Okay, so if counseling is, as you said, it's to have an end date.
Yes.
A person may not know when that end date is, but your job or your purpose is to help them go through the transition of being at a nothing place, wherever it is mentally, so they can be at a something place, and now they can say, okay, I don't need your services, or you can tell them you're good now. You can kind of go spread your wings, so to say.
Yes, that's the purpose. I would say sometimes you do have folks, again, maintenance, you always need maintenance, just like professionals need professional development. So it's not a problem to check in with a counselor. Let's say you go and spread your wings and you're not consistently in counseling weekly or bi-weekly, but let's say, I don't know, life happens and you might need to come back in and check in 3 months or something, or 4 months, because something's stressing you out and you want a different perspective. That's fine. That's maintenance. But again, it's not meant to be forever.
Okay.
Okay.
And see, and again, this is my personal views. When you watch movies and things like that, you see a therapist and they laying down and ask you questions, they writing on their clipboard. And so, I always felt as though that's how therapy would be. That, oh, well, this person is doing this and I'm just supposed to go there forever and ever. And they're really just kind of dictating my decisions. But now knowing what you're saying is that's not what happens, especially with as you said, the Black and brown community, where there always has been this stigma of, we don't tell anybody about our family business. No matter if somebody got molested, no matter if somebody got killed, no matter what happens, this stays within the confines of our family. And even with the coronavirus going on right now, we see the uprise of so many people having mental health issues and unfortunately are taking their lives. Whether it be from the people that are on the lower side of the financial state or even people on the higher side of the financial state. And so it just shows that nobody is immune to this mental illness.
You're right.
So if anybody would need help, how would a person go about making the conversation easy? Because it's not an easy conversation to ask somebody like how they're doing, because usually nowadays people say, how are you doing? But that's more of a greeting than them actually knowing what's going on. So how do you think people could make the conversation a lot more comfortable and a lot more easier?
So it depends. So are you talking about in regards to professionals or just like family members and friends with people that might be professionals? Okay. So again, very honest, the mental health system in America is broken, and it has been broken for a long time. So it's not, again, accessibility to certain people to receive or obtain mental health services is not where it should be. So even right now, in regards to this coronavirus and the pandemic, the demand for mental health services have skyrocketed. And I've seen it in my private practice, and I know plenty of other people have seen this in regards to providers and practitioners, not just counselors, but social workers, psychiatrists, psychologists, et cetera, licensed marriage and family therapists. It's just the demand is up there. But at the end of the day, again, I don't think the mental health system in general is set up to be able to handle the demand. I will say this in regards to Black and brown practitioners that work in mental and behavioral health is very limited. So the issues right now pertaining to Black and brown communities, a lot of Black and brown people want Black and brown therapists and counselors and licensed marriage and family therapists and psychiatrists. That is unable to be met, that need, because there's not enough people of color that's practicing in these fields. And that's not because people of color don't want to. Again, that's because of certain setups. Unless we could call it, let's be real, call it systemic racism, that's set up to prevent certain people from being able to practice like other folks in these professions. And it's a lot of barriers. It's not all easy for people of color to become these different practitioners. But at the end of the day, if someone wanted to reach out, you would think the logical thing to do would be able to look up a therapist or counselor on most of these sites. Like you have Psychology Today, goodtherapy.com, different sites. You could just look up different therapists. You could call your insurance company. They have the 1-800 number on the back of the card for member services. They're supposed to help you. Some jobs have EAP services. You could call the employer, ask for HR, EAP. And they're supposed to connect you. But again, if you're asking specifically for Black and brown folks in this business, probably you're going to get, we don't have that, or the number is so limited and the demand is so high right now, they don't have any openings. And that's honest.
Okay.
So that's the honesty of what's going on right now with that. So again, I would say if you can't get, let's say you really want a Black or brown therapist, a counselor, etc., you cannot get that. I would say still go in and try to find someone you can connect with. And just as much as they're asking you questions, you ask them questions too about the issues you want to discuss. What's their experiences with these issues? Who's the clients they typically see? What's the age ranges? You get as much information as you can so you could find a good fit, despite it maybe not being who you primarily want to work with. So to me, it's more about the I hate to say it, but the client or the person seeking the services is going to have to be really active and persistent to get what they want. But then that becomes concerning too when you're not in a mental state to be that persistent and active to get the services you want. If I'm suicidal or depressed or really anxious or whatnot, I'm not thinking I have to keep calling somebody 10 times and following up, or I have to keep emailing somebody, or I have to call back the insurance company, or I have a list now of providers, there's 50 on the list. I have to narrow them down and call all these numbers and leave voice messages and wait for someone to get back to me. So again, that's why I say the system is broken, because again, if you even reach out, it's not necessarily a guarantee you'll get the response back. So actually, and I don't know if I could keep talking on this for a little bit, but I will say I would recommend people also reach out to folks in their support networks that are positive, because sometimes, like I said, the mental health system might not be there to really support you in the time of need. So it might be some of those supports. So if you're religious or spiritual and you attend or have connections with church or different spiritual services and people, clergy, reach out to those folks. They're also positive supports that can help you through mental and emotional issues and concerns. If you have positive supports in your family, reach out to those folks. Positive friends, reach out to them. If you need some encouragement or just need someone to talk you through some problems. But again, it really depends right now in this. I can't even say anything is guaranteed with someone reaching out for mental health services right now.
Okay. Now, see, and that was something that I was going to actually ask you. What would be an alternative if a person didn't have that? And you just said that, it's not just about talking to somebody. It's about talking to positive people. Somebody that's going to encourage you, somebody that's not going to just listen, but somebody who's going to hear what you're saying and actually be there for you. Because a lot of times people speak, but nobody actually listens. So it's amazing that, so many people don't understand mental awareness and how important that is, because even as you said, it's not a one size fit all with seeking somebody. The same way you would go and find the right doctor for whatever disease that you have, you want to make sure that they're specialists in it and how long have they been doing it. You want to do the same thing when you're trying to seek somebody with mental health issues. So now let me ask you this question. How long have you been in the field of what you're doing?
I started out in 2013. I actually started out as life coaching, and then I
Okay.
switched to mental health after I obtained my licensure in 20, I think it was 2014 actually. And then I opened up the private practice in 2015. Started out part-time. I just went to full-time in 2018.
Okay. So now that was a perfect segue. Where can people find you? How can they look you up? What could they do if they wanted to seek your help?
Okay, so for me, my website is www.keplife.com. So that's K as in kite, E as in Edward, P as in Paul, life. Um, Everything is on there about my services, who I am, my approaches, everything actually. Insurance is accepted, etc. And also on that website, you could contact me. It's a contact link in which you could just go on and email me. I typically respond within 48 hours to an email. And I try to make the process pretty simple. Like once you email me and I respond to you, we set up a consult call. And during that consult call, you're able to ask me questions about myself and, you know, in terms of who I work with, what type of problems or issues that I have experience with, how long I've been in the field, et cetera. And then I also ask you questions about your past experience with counseling or therapy, what brings you in at this time, and your expectations for coming in now for counseling or therapy. And I will say with the consult calls, I'm not going to guarantee I will accept your case from the consult call. That's why it's called the consult call. So it's basically to see if you'll be a good fit to work with me, but also if I'm a good fit to work with you. And if I have some concerns or I don't think I specialize in the area or whatnot, I will refer out. So I would, you know, not be able to take your case on. But again, my process on how I do things is not the standard, and it should be, in my opinion, in this field. So that's how you could get me. So again, www.keplife.com.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you decided to come on and join us. And we will end this, as I always say on every episode. Remember, go be great because you are great. And something that I'm saying new now, speak it, hear it, believe it. So thank you for joining me.
No problem. Bye, everyone.
You are in control of you. You have what it takes. You are the determining factor of your happiness. Nobody is in control of how you feel. You have control over your feelings. You control how you feel. You have what it takes. Remember, you got what it takes. So go be great.